Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name's Jade, and this is the Odd Couple Rant. And today, not so much of an odd couple, I think we're pretty much alike, but it is my very special guest, Thomas Christ. Sponsored by DistroKid, of course. We're going to talk about the music industry, but first, let's play some Thomas Christ. This is the Doom Scroll.
This scroll has been unsealed and unwrapped.
Hello and welcome to the show. My name is Jade and this is the Odd Couple Rant, and you just heard from our special guest today, Thomas Christ, and that was the Doom Scroll. How many of us today have been on the Doom Scrolls? The first thing I did today, scrolly, pointless information that you don't even need to see. We're all a part of the Doom Scroll, aren't we? I hope you're doing well. Thanks for joining us live, and if you're watching on the replay, hello to you as well. I need to cover a bit of business before we get into the show, because with these shows, well, guess what? I can't do them without the amazing support of our good friends at DistroKid. DistroKid are a streaming service. They offer you the platforms to be able to release your music to the public and have people go and listen to it, download it, stream it, buy it, all that kind of stuff at places such as Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, Deezer. There's so many places that your music goes out to when you sign up to DistroKid that it is just ridiculous. And of course, you will have noticed it's that time of the year where people are posting their Spotify rewinds or whatever it's called, where they show how many people have streamed their music this year. That all comes to you mostly. There's a lot of people using DistroKid. They are the #1 streaming service, which was released, I think, a few weeks ago out of all the services. So they still are on top, and there is good reason for it, because for the very low price of $22.99 annually, you get access to release one artist with unlimited songs, unlimited lyrics, Spotify checkmark. There's that Spotify checkmark to help you get your music there where most people consume music these days. Royalty splits, so you can do collaborations with people and split those dollars up. Access to free 21 tools and a mobile app, which you can even upload your music from. If you're an iOS user or Android user, you can release your music through the app as well. If you use my promo code, which is in the description and at the top, and you can find it all anywhere on this channel, distrokid.com/VIP/Jade Starr, you will get 7% off your first year. 3 tiers they have right here. Musicians, you get 1 artist. Musician Plus, you get 2 artists, and a whole bunch of little extra things like daily streaming stats, customizing your own record label, choosing a release date, iTunes custom pricing. Or you can be like me and have the ultimate pack here, which I get 5 to 100 artists. I think I've lost how many artists I have, which is $89.99, $39.99, or $22.99. DistroKid are a sponsor. They've been a sponsor of this channel for a while now, and I want to thank DistroKid for everything that they do for me here on my channel, because it really helps. Thanks, DistroKid. Love you loads. We'll hear a little bit more soon. Welcome to the show. Now, this is a kind of rotating show where once a month I have a guest on and we rant about something, and this month it's Thomas Christ. So we'll bring him on. Get him on here because I know he's foaming at the bit to get on and say something, because that's what Thomas does. Let's bring him on, ladies and gentlemen, Thomas Christ. Make sure he's unmuted. Boom. Hey, Thomas.
Hey, what's up, Jade? Always foaming at the mouth. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah, like a rabid dog. Thank you, Thomas, for coming on the show. It's always awesome to catch up with you.
You're welcome.
Thanks
for having me on.
It's a pleasure, and I can't wait to talk about this subject with you, because it's interesting. This show's called The Odd Couple, but we're a little bit similar. We kind of, have come from doing gigs at a young age and playing at school, and yeah, we're pretty angsty and outspoken, and, we don't really hold back. So it's kind of like the unodd couple. This one's a special edition. Thank you, everybody in the chat, for joining us as well. We'll do a shout out in about 15 minutes' time. We'll call your names out or something like that, as we normally do. And all right, I just want to bring up too, before we get into it, my room should be sounding really good now, because you can probably see we've done all the sound paneling behind me. There's sound paneling over here, sound paneling here, sound paneling there. And that reverb is just gone, man. Who could believe that $50 worth of, 30 odd panels can make such
Money
a
well spent.
oh man, it made such a difference. So this room is dead as a nail. It's fantastic. So I'm loving that. And I know some people are going to say, "What about that glare behind you on the door, which you're going to get rid of?" I couldn't get the paneling into the door; the wood's too hard. So I'm going to put a movie poster on there, and that should fix all that. And happy days. Anyway, that bizzo's out. We're talking about. Hey, we're talking about the music industry today. So to start off, Thomas, I thought I'd ask you to give us, in a minute, your elevator pitch on just who the bloody hell is Thomas Christ. Go.
I am a guy who has done industrial music for 20 years, and now I'm trying to be also a YouTube content creator, and I've got lots of energy, and I've got lots of great music, and yeah, you probably will go for somebody like Taylor Swift or something, but yeah, consider Thomas Christ.
Consider Thomas Christ. Man, Taylor,
Have you heard the good news of Thomas Christ?
Look, if you knocked on my door on a Saturday, Thomas, telling me the good news about Thomas Christ, I'd let you in.
Well, there you go. I mean, that's half the battle right there.
Yeah, I know. Getting somebody to even listen is half the battle. All right, so we're going to talk about the music industry today because it's a thorny subject, and you know, for a lot of people here on YouTube who have, you know, I've interviewed a lot of people here on the channel, and a good majority of people in this little small bubble of YouTube, people haven't really experienced anything from the music industry. Played gigs, you know, lots of gigs, and released albums, and had to deal with promoters and managers and the music industry. It's pretty evil. So we'll start off talking about, I think, did you want to be a rock star as a kid?
Well, I don't know as a kid, because I started off as a kid. I wanted to be a rapper,
Oh,
which I guess is
what?
kind of similar. No, when I was like in grade school and stuff, I wanted to be. I was into rap music. I was into like Vanilla Ice, and then I got into like Crisscross. They were popular
my
at the
God.
time, and
Warm it up, Chris.
yeah, I know. And I thought I made like little I made tapes and stuff. I was gonna be a rap. These were horrible. It was just like me on a freaking cassette tape, not even with any music behind it, just going like yo yo yo. It's terrible.
I think that's where it starts for a lot of us, Thomas. Like,
Yeah.
it's an embarrassing story, but I think it's one most people can, especially around our age. The cassettes were a thing, weren't they? And like, I remember sitting there on a Sunday night here in Australia. It was probably Saturday in the US. Casey Kasem would come on live broadcast into Australia, and I'd have my cassette there, and I'd be taping 80 songs and getting them on cassette because I had no money and I couldn't afford them, and would sing into little cheap microphones and pretend I was in a band and all this stuff. Did you do that? Were you at so Crisscross?
Oh man, I did that, and I did even like fake crowd noises at the end. You know, I would do my thing, and then I would do like shh yeah woo, like, oh, people are going freaking crazy.
And now here we are.
It was nuts. Yeah.
It is a thing, like, you know, it's the stereotype of wanting to be a rock and roll star as a kid is the hairbrush on the bed, bouncing up and down, singing into that. Yeah, I'm guilty, and you know, I probably wouldn't have admitted it 20 years ago because it was embarrassing. But these days, whatever, you know, it is a thing. And what do you think was as a kid? I don't know these days if kids even think about it now because they can just get on TikTok and be a celebrity. So things have changed so much. What do you think it was?
Maybe TikTok is the modern equivalent of that in YouTube. Because there's, you know, I don't think they're really technically supposed to, but there's younger people on YouTube and stuff too. And, you know, they're doing the exact same thing we were doing with cassette tapes, but now they're doing it, they're just putting it on YouTube. But the difference is, like, we did it and maybe some of our closest friends would hear it, if that. And now everybody in the world is hearing it potentially, and at least everybody in their school and stuff. So, it's probably a little bit different, and there may be implications to that down the road that you don't think of. I probably wouldn't want every tape that I made when I was a kid to be out there in the world. But that's the reality that they live in today. So, I guess you have to learn to adapt to the new circumstance. But that's the only reality they know. So, that's been the way it's been since they were young. So they'll adapt to it.
Yeah, I wouldn't want anybody to listen to the tapes I made. No, we used to sit around and do like pretend. Me and a friend, we did Sale of the Century and record that to tape, and I'd be the host, and we'd have my cats as like the contestants and stuff, and super embarrassed. I can't believe I'm even admitting this on a live stream, but hey,
Yeah.
that's what it is. So the, I don't know. Back then it was really different too. If like we'll talk about back then because the whole rock star thing, and I'm sure all the way back Elvis and all that kind of stuff. It was so alluring to be
Yeah.
a rock star, to have the glitz and glamour, and I guess because the internet wasn't around as well too, the access that you got to rock stars or famous musicians wasn't like it is now. So you don't get to see who their political beliefs are and all that shit, and have everything ruined. So it was more. Do you think it was more more mystique behind the music industry back then?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, like every artist, they controlled completely what they presented to the world, and I think the media was back in those days. It was also a different thing. I think the media was, worked together with the artists and helped them to present the things that they wanted. Nowadays, it's very different because it's all about social media, and you could DM your favorite rock star. I
Yeah.
don't think they'll answer you necessarily, but some will. But there's also the aspect of everybody has phones and they're recording all the time. And so if you mess up, if you do something wrong, it's going to be on, it's going to be somewhere out, in the entertainment news. So you have to kind of, I guess, if you're really famous and stuff, I've never been that, privileged to have that, but I guess you would have to be very careful about what you do, what you say, almost all the time. Even when you're around people that you think are your friends, because they might not actually be your friends. They're just pretending to be your friends because they have, certain benefits with that, especially if you're wealthy and you're famous. Relationships I imagine, they're always difficult when you have a lot of money and a lot of celebrity. They're probably even more difficult now because, you don't just have to worry about that person. You have to worry about what other people's perceptions will be. And, if things go bad, they're going to, potentially use stuff against you. So it's a whole different world right now. And it's kind of difficult, I think, it's difficult for the artist. It may be better for the fans because they have more access, but, that it's kind of again, it's the adaptation to the modern environment that we have right now, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you can pay a celebrity, a movie star, or a Z-grade celebrity for a cameo now and have them like say happy birthday and all that kind of weird stuff. Like that kind of access was never a thing. Like I'm focusing more today on the 80s for me
Yeah.
because that was, I mean, and it was a really interesting time too because electronic music was really taking off in the pop world, in the commercial mainstream. So there seemed like there were new artists every week and they were getting pushed to the moon. And you had, speaking of artists as well, because we didn't have social media, you had to wait a fair while to get an interview with somebody. You'd have to wait for print media or like a music television show, Top of the Pops. Here we had Countdown. Every country had their TV show, which would have have a band on. They'd mime to the music, play, and then they get a very brief interview. So you really didn't get a lot of insight into the artist, which was probably a good thing.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
Well,
I don't want to see Madonna at 2 a.m. in a bathtub like these days, going or Britney Spears off her nut dancing and just going, "Wow, is she on meth again?"
Well, I'll tell you. It's just funny that you mentioned Cameo because in the '80s because I have something that relates to both of that. Vince Neil is the
Oh,
lead
wow.
singer, of course, of Motley Crue, and he did a cameo that I think a lot of people found out about, and maybe wasn't so flattering for him because he was responding to a guy. I'm trying to remember what the guy's name was, but he got the guy's name wrong, and I think it was like Darren or something. But he's like, "Hey, Decker."
Is this
And
it?
then he said it was for a 40. Yeah, it was that one. Happy 40th birthday, you man. And he was obviously like not in a good state.
Yeah, he's not been in a good state for a while, hasn't he? Let's hear it. Let's
No.
hear
Yeah.
the perils of today's social media. So Vince Neil is for Derek Christian. It was for,
Derek, that's what it was.
we'll
Oh yeah, there's some
mute that
crap in the beginning of it.
just so we don't get any claims for any of this weird stuff that people put at the start of their videos. What's this nonsense? No, come on. Yeah, we get your music.
Hey, Decker, this is Vince Neil. Hey, I want to say happy birthday, brother. This is actually from Christian, Mom, Ethan, and Blake. So keep on rocking, shout the devil, and do some feel good stuff in big old 4-0, you man. All right, see you later.
Wow. That probably cost like $500, you know? How disappointing.
Do some feel good stuff and shout at the devil and happy 4-0, you man.
Throw as many.
I've watched that so many times. Oh god, that's so funny.
And I mean, he has become a bit of a meme, hasn't he, with all of his live performances with, and people like putting words underneath. Man, it's funny how the mighty fall. It's interesting too when you're young. I went and saw Motley Crue perform live. And I remember, man, that was a wild show. They had the revolving drum kit and they had nurses on stage with huge fake boobalakas. And then Mick Mars did a guitar solo that went for way too long where he had like 4 guitars laying flat and he played them like keyboards and everybody went to the concession stand during that whole bit of Mick Mars. But I remember watching that and never in my wildest dreams going, I wonder if Vince Neil's going to turn out to a really overweight slob who can't sing anymore. And what do you know? There it is.
It's not so great.
And it's interesting, like talking about kids and the way trends used to be too. Like, remember with, it's just, these are really iconic things like Michael Jackson with his little glove. Madonna with some of the clothes she wore when she came out with Like a Virgin. And back then, you would look around as a kid and everybody dressed like that. These things like took off. And Bruce Springsteen, Born in the USA, everybody had that look of the denim and wife beater. And, people picked up on that stuff. Taylor Swift these days, nothing. No, you don't see. No. Instead, everybody's got a name that, we're the Swifties. They've come up with a nickname for themselves. And the very influential times of rock stars, is it, I guess, is it due to some of the weird videos that are around these days? I mean, there's a lot of videos. If you deep dive into rabbit holes on YouTube, you will find a lot of celebrity videos, how like, they're doing this, and it's the sign of the devil, and there's a lot of that shit out there, and everybody's a certain section of society is utterly paranoid that all celebrities have signed deals with the devil and they're recruiting you into a cult. But has that really changed since Elvis did the pelvic thrust?
Well, I mean, they they banned Elvis for they wouldn't show him from the waist down because apparently his hips were too that was just too tantalizing for young, especially ladies in the audience, and so they didn't want anybody having those thoughts about what what they could be doing with Mr. Presley. But yeah, I don't know. There's all kinds of weird stuff now with the celebrities and stuff, and I used to laugh at that stuff, but now it's just like it's all getting like it's all becoming too mainstream, and it's affecting reality now. It's not just some weirdos on the. It was just weirdos on the internet, but now it's more mainstream people, and so yeah, it's probably not a great thing.
Yeah, presidents are now repeating this shit. So
Yeah.
that's weird. Like, I've been following this. I guess most of us have followed it to a degree. This Diddy stuff that's gone down, and it's funny with Diddy. Like, I'm not really into that kind of music. So when all this stuff broke about Diddy, I was like, I should go and listen to his music. And then I found out he's not even a fucking musician. He just sits there and what does he actually do?
Well, first of all, I wouldn't trust a guy that changes his name so often because he was Puff Daddy.
Yeah.
And I still call him Puff Daddy, and because that's what that was when my formative years. He was Puff Daddy, and then he was just like Puffy, and then he was like Sean Puffy Combs, and then he became Diddy. I don't know. Pick a name and stick with it. First of all, and so we shouldn't be surprised that somebody like that is living a duplicitous life.
And it's funny too because it's not funny what he did because it's clearly demented, but. And all of a sudden now, it's like this is what we have with today's rock star, pop idol kind of thing, is that as soon as he goes and gets done, now everyone's involved, and people are just trying to find a way to just include everyone in it. I don't know why people want so many people to be involved in this secret cabal. It's like people who think that there's this whole cabal of who created the virus and all this stuff. It's like the governments can't even organise fixing potholes in the road as if they can come together to do anything that elaborate, and keep it a secret. People are shit at keeping secrets. They're just terrible at it,
Yeah. Well, it's the whole thing with sorry to get a bit political, but with Joe Biden, because Joe Biden was so old and decrepit he can't do anything, but also he rigged an election and masterminded all this stuff. So which is it? You can't be both. You can't be both.
You
can only
got to
be
go
one.
all in on one. People aren't really good at multitasking. So we discovered today that Thomas loves crisscross, and I'm never going to forget that now. What up, Chris?
I thought Vanilla Ice would be the bigger one.
Dude, look, all right, I'm just going to say it. I went and saw Vanilla Ice when he toured Australia, but there's a caveat. So I worked at this store here in Australia called Clark Rubber, and we produce foam and rubber and stuff. And I got a phone call one day, and it was from the Vanilla Ice road crew, and they were searching for some heavy-duty foam EVA sponge to put under their turntables for their show in Melbourne. And I was like, oh, well, we can help you out with that. And they came down, and I fixed them up with the foam. Nobody was around, so I gave them a little bit of a discount. And they gave me 2 free tickets. So I took my girlfriend at the time because she really liked Vanilla Ice, and we got to meet him backstage. And I was so proud of myself. I wore a Carcass T-shirt. And when he came over to us, he put his hand out to shake mine, and I didn't shake his hand.
No.
How metal is that? And my girlfriend said, you're a fucker.
Yeah, if you were metal back in those days, I don't think you would. I think that would hurt your credit a little bit.
Like the dancing was good.
Yeah. No, I think the biggest mistake Vanilla Ice made in his entire career was he should have stuck with what he was doing.
Yeah.
He should have worn the corny jumpsuits and the weird hair
Parachute
and all that
pants.
stuff. And you know what? Just don't worry about what the haters say. Because sometimes people get too wrapped up in well, these people are saying all these negative stuff. So then he comes out and he's got dreadlocks and he's, Rasta Man or something now. He's gangster rap. And then he went to do new metal. And if he would have just stuck with being the dorky, whatever that was, because I still think that was cool. I still think that was awesome. What he was doing, To the Extreme is a great album. I love that.
I think there's something to say about sticking to your roots. It garners respect from people that it's a hard balance, isn't it? Because I'm sure we're going to get into this as well with the way bands change as they get more popular in the industry, and you got to wonder is is this them deciding we want to change, or is this pressure from the record label after they release an album that flops really badly? Because, you know, this happens. U2, bands make terrible decisions and release albums. Some bands like U2 decide to put their new album in everybody's iTunes player and cops the biggest backlash of all time, which was just musical unaliving. Nearly said that word. Musical unaliving. It's interesting. So going back to you, and we'll go back to you, and then I'll say my thing. Did you ever see yourself releasing music as a kid? Like, did you have aspirations of recording music and putting it out there? Was this a thing that you wanted to follow? And how did you, if so, how did you take the first steps to do so?
Yeah, well, I mean, probably as a kid, I thought, well, I'm going to be signed at the age of like 12 or 13 as a rapper. Like, there were in fairness, there were a lot of kid rappers in the 90s. And so I thought maybe I could get on that trend. And that would have worked for me. But, long term, it didn't work out so great for a lot of those people. Unfortunately, like, the Daddy Mac is not going to make you jump anymore because, unfortunately, he passed away. Now, I don't think it was anything. It wasn't like drugs or anything. It was just he had some kind of strange disease, I think, or like a heart problem or something. But yeah, and then that evolved into like when I got into more like metal and new metal, and then I got into like some new wave and stuff, and started playing around with keyboards in my basement, and that eventually led to Thomas Christ. So there was always a dream there that, like, yeah, I'm gonna send my demo out to some publisher or something, and they're gonna be able to get me a deal or something like that. That's the way things worked back then. There was no YouTube or being able to make it on the internet. You needed some connection or some A&R person to discover you.
Drug overdose.
Oh, I was wrong. I don't know why. I was thinking it wasn't that. I was hoping it wasn't that. But
what a standard way to die as a musician, yeah?
Yeah.
Like, it's so... I mean, this is the thing too, which we're going to talk about. The music industry comes with baggage, and the unhappiness that you see from musicians. Anyway, let's say we'll get into this. We'll say hello to everybody here. Thanks for joining us here live. Ed Zielinski, g'day. Paul O'Farrell. We've got Tremor Bear, Robbie Stingle, Granny Heathen. The opposite way, B Metal, JDL, g'day. Joe and Barry Glenn. I saw Brad Example right up the top. Pete Johns is here. Pete's up next. He's back from holidays, thank goodness. Jenny Jolivet. And if I have missed you, I can't scroll any higher. So give me a shout and I'll call your name out. Covered by CQ. There you go. Right on time. Ali, g'day. And for all of those who I may have missed, hello and thanks for hanging out. Making music. We'll talk about making music. We'll come back to, you know what, let's just keep talking celebrities for a bit. I don't get to do this gossip stuff. It's kind of fun talking gossip. Yeah. Auntie G, what's going on, Auntie G? Good to see you.
Auntie G.
She's a bit of a rock star.
No, she is a rock star.
She's playing gigs. Like, it's funny too, like seeing artists around our little community here. And there's a few who are doing gigs, and that's really exciting to see them break away from just YouTube. Like, I'm really excited myself. I'm in a band now. I guess I can go public and tell people what the name of the band is. It's called Phantom Panda Power Wizard Master Smasher. And we are starting...
Write that down.
Yeah, that's why I said it fast so nobody picks it up. But we are gigging. I think we start gigging in late January, February. And we're going to be gigging all through 2025. So that's going to be a new thing for me at 52 years old, hitting the stage in a band again. We start rehearsals this week, and but it's going to be a whole change to my lifestyle and stuff like that, because being in a band and performing regularly is something that impacts being a musician.
Absolutely.
This gets down to, I think, well, let's talk about the way bands have changed. So, for example, I think everybody out there has a favorite band that they loved, bought everything, worshipped the hell out of, and then all of a sudden they release an album that sucks. Do you have one of those, Thomas?
I probably have many of them.
Well, give us some examples. Name and shame.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. It's like I tend to not like judge that because I always go back to whatever I liked about the band, and even if there's like one album that I would say like I don't like, I maybe just skip that one. But yeah, there's a lot of those kind of like where, especially later in careers, it's so hard for people to stay relevant for a long time because they do such, and I think it comes down to like when you're starting out, you have great ideas, and the more you go and the further you go, you start to run out of those ideas. Metallica is a great example because thank you, Ed, because like I loved everything Metallica did up until the Black Album, and then I couldn't even tell you songs after that.
Oh wow!
I have no idea. Yeah, Load, Reload, whatever.
So
Don't care.
It was the Black Album for you.
Yep, Black Album. I still think that I think that was their best album in some ways because that combined like what they were doing in the 80s, which was awesome, but it was kind of limited because like a lot of the songs were really long. They're like 8-10 minutes long. That they got this interesting formula there with the Black Album where the songs are shorter, but they still have the same kind of energy that they had with their early stuff. It's still definitely metal. Then the stuff that they did later on, it felt like as soon as they cut their hair and stuff, it was like, they kind of went more to like I think they were trying to get more to like a grunge rock or alternative rock sound, and it just came off weird.
Yeah, maybe it's the Samson theory, cut the hair off, lose all the power. See, I love the Black Album. It was the first Metallica album that had songs on it that actually made me cry. Like nothing else matters. I broke up with somebody and I put that song on over and over. Maybe that was more the problem because I broke up with somebody. But like I loved everything about Metallica. I was a full-on death metal, black metal, crazy metal, extreme music fan then. But I really liked it. When I first got the Black Album, I was like, oh man, really? Oh, Bob Rock has destroyed this band. But then I listened to it over and over because some albums grow on you. Load and Reload. Now they can fuck off. They were shocking albums to me. That was like a grab for an audience of like fast cars and that real redneck. That was to me them officially saying, metalheads, we don't need you anymore. We're going for supercars, funny cars, car racing enthusiasts, and that Marianne Faithfull song. Oh man, that was so rank.
You know what? Actually, I like that one. The Memory Remains. I kind of
what's she doing?
It's kind of weird and creepy, and I kind of like that about it.
Like you get Marianne Faithfull, and you get her to do that on a song.
What I didn't get was like, why does Unforgiven? It's an okay song. Why does it need 2 sequels?
Well, you could say that about most movies as well.
Yeah. But like movies have sequels. That's a thing. Like songs having sequels, I don't know, unless it's like a really epic song that's something worth revisiting. I'm not sure that Unforgiven was that.
I think they were living their Led Zeppelin fantasy around that time.
Yeah.
Led
now
Zeppelin
I still have this theory, and I want everybody to let me know if you agree with this or not. I've always thought if James Hetfield had somehow not met, Kirk Hammett and Cliff Burton and Lars Ulrich, they hadn't all got together and formed this metal band. I think that James Hetfield would be a country singer. I think he would be like Jimmy Hetfield.
Yeah.
Could you see him, especially the way he looks now with like the hair and the goatee and the glasses and stuff? Could you see him with a cowboy hat? Yeah, I think he already wears cowboy boots a lot of the time. But with his voice, I could easily hear him being like a like a Kenny Chesney type or something.
Absolutely. Yeah. That song Mama Said, where he's in the back of the car playing acoustic guitar. That is so country. It's ridiculous. I mean, the other Metallica album that gets all the heat is of course, I don't even want to say the name of it. What is it called? The tin.
Only in anger with you.
Boop, 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 with that great snare sound. I'm not even going to say the name of it because it sucks so much. It's a horrible fucking album, and it's such a shame too because it got Rob Trujillo playing bass on it, and that dude's a monster bass player, and it got overshadowed by just that horrible drum kit. It's funny with Metallica, everything kind of gets overshadowed by things that Lars Ulrich does.
Yeah.
It's just a thing, isn't it? So Lars Ulrich, obviously a tool.
Well, they do have a history of slogging off bass players. So
yeah,
that's probably not that surprising.
Yeah. So, and I'm sure people have bands out there that have disappointed them. I mean, there's been lots of bands that have changed course, changed direction, especially like Ed will probably agree with me here in the chat. Look at Celtic Frost, man. They were like the masters of dark metal back in the day. And then they released that album Cold Lake. And they're all like, they all had like the makeup on, the dark makeup. I'm trying to find the photos. Celtic Frost, Cold Lake. It's a terrible. So they're all black, kind of black metal, you could say that, and then all of a sudden, this is what happened to them.
Oh yeah,
like this dude's even look at this. This guy's even got his jeans undone. Look at that. What's happening there? Like, look at these gloves. Like they were really evil, and this album bombed really big time. This is what happens.
Yeah.
People change. And you got to wonder, like, is this record label pressure? Because let's talk about that kind of stuff. You've got bands like, all right, so there's a whole bunch of different ways bands can make it big. There's heaps of bands out there who released heaps of albums, and then nobody paid any attention to them. And then on their fourth album, they get signed, they become massive. Live, there's a band Live. Pantera. Yep. Pantera released, 3 albums before they got Cowboys from Hell happening, and people went, who's this band? I mean, they were another hair metal kind of band. For example, Counting Crows. Counting Crows are a little bit different. They released their first album, made it big, and then every other album they've released, no one gives a shit about except their hardcore fans. But they still continue. Then you've got one-hit wonder artists who release one album, takes off, no one gives a shit about ever again. And the music industry is relentless, especially when you're signed to a label, because they look at the last album and go, all right, well, we made this amount of money. What do you got for us next? We want to make more money, because it is about money, the music industry at the end of the day. And that's why the thumbnail of us has money behind it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's an industry. It's really like, you could think of it as like the entertainment industrial complex, and it's part of capitalism. So the only goal of capitalism is to make money, and the profit over everything else. And everybody else is human beings are expendable. That's across the board in every industry, every profession that you could think of. That's healthcare is like that.
Yeah.
So music is going to be like that. If we're doing that with people's lives and people's health, we're doing that with music and movies and TV. It's all of that feeds the machine.
Yeah, absolutely. And with it's funny because the people who make the most money in the music industry, let's not kid ourselves about this, are the names of people we've never heard of, and they mostly sit in in big offices, schmoozing lunches and stuff like that, because they are the managers, they are the lawyers, the solicitors, and all that kind of stuff. While the bands, I remember I did an interview with Mike Patton on it was for the Angel Dust tour. Yeah, it was Angel Dust. And they're out here performing in Australia, and how I got the interview was so sneaky. I went to a record signing thing, so went there, got my CD signed, and then asked where they were staying, and said I was from a magazine, and they trusted me, so I went to the hotel. But when I interviewed them, I mean, they had Easy out, they had previously had Epic, and were on MTV. You would think they were a huge band. Man, they said they had like $200 in their bank account. And here they are touring Australia, and you just like that really put things in perspective. Like, shit, is this the way it is? Like, is this the music industry? Like, where does the money go? Who's making it? Somebody's making it. We don't know who the fuck they are.
It ain't the musicians.
Yeah, and that trend has continued on throughout time. It just continues to get worse and worse, and it seems like more and more musicians like. It seems like the gap of like becoming a successful musician is like really narrowing. You're either Taylor Swift or you're not.
Yeah. And most of us, last I checked, not Taylor Swift. So, yeah, not even Justin Bieber. So I guess I have to.
Have you Have you even heard a Taylor Swift song?
Probably like they play them in that commercials of sports games and stuff. So I probably heard it there.
Can you name one?
As far as intentionally, no, not really. I'm not the target audience for that.
Isn't that funny that like? But even though, but in the 80s, right? There was heaps of stuff I didn't really like, but I still knew names of the songs. Like it's interesting. Like now, I see Taylor Swift and go, oh, I've got no idea. It's like Ariana Grande. I watched Wicked the other day, the new movie, and I knew nothing about her. Absolutely nothing. I've not heard any of her music. And I watched the movie, and one of the main takeaways, the movie was great. It was a really cool musical. But I came away hating Ariana Grande. She's such an annoying character. And then I saw her being interviewed in real life, and guess what? She was more annoying than she was in that film.
No. That's another one I don't know too much about, Ariana Grande. I heard similar things about, Lady Gaga was in that Joker movie not too long ago. And I heard that people weren't too happy about that either.
I liked that movie. I thought it was good. I don't know.
I didn't see it, so I don't know, but that's just what I heard.
I think it's interesting because everybody expected, I guess, part 2 to be like the first one. And I really liked the way they subverted. You know how Rian Johnson tried to subvert people's expectations in the second Star Wars trilogy sequels, and he subverted it so much that everybody hated it. I think it's a very similar situation with the Joker. They tried to do this musical to explain what was going on in the Joker's mind, how fucked he was in the head, and people just missed it and just went, "Oh, it's a musical. I don't like it." It's like, yeah, but that's not the point. Like, they're trying to, like, it's artistic. Anyway, why are we explaining that to people anyway? You know what I mean? People go and watch movies. Now we're getting on a tangent. People go and watch a movie that costs like billions of dollars to make. They're in there for 2 hours, and they just walk out like a critic and need to go on YouTube and review it. And it's like, can't you just take off your like review hat and just have 2 hours just to let a film wash over you and not give a fuck? It's like Beetlejuice 2. I watched that, and it wasn't fantastic. But you know what? I was entertained.
Well, I did see that one, and I was a big fan of the first one, and I thought it was it did what it needed to do. It wasn't gonna be as good as the first one. You're never gonna get that.
No,
and that was some years ago. I think given the parameters of what they're being so long after the first one, and with people dead and people not participating in it, and so on and so forth. It wasn't going to match that, but I think it was entertaining, and it felt like a Beetlejuice movie.
Yes, I agree.
I thought it was fine.
Ed Zelinsky says, I just realized that jazz artists often peak later in life, but rock stars quite often peak early and then chase youth. Yes, the 27 rule was a thing. I remember that as a kid. Like, rock stars are all going to die at 27. And I remember being such a naive musician going, I hope I die at 27 as well. Is that weird?
Yeah. Well, I can see the appeal of that, but I don't think that's even true today, because the rock stars that we have today, the weird thing about it, and maybe the thing we should be more concerned about as fans of rock music, is they're the same ones that literally the same people that I was going to see as a kid, they're still touring, and they're still the biggest acts that come around.
Yeah.
There's very few new rock artists that are breaking through. So, it's still like Foo Fighters. It's still, it's Rob Zombie and whatever else you think of. The Metallica,
Yeah, it's
hell, the Rolling Stones are still going.
No, man, look, the Rolling Stones are going to outlive the cockroaches. It just is what it is.
Yeah.
I think the Rolling Stones are going to outlive a nuclear war, which is on the horizon, and we're going to see a nuclear bomb go off. And this is the scene, Thomas. And as the mushroom cloud expands from the explosion as it fires out, Keith Richards is going to come walking through and then put his cigarette into the cloud to light it and go. Oh, yeah.
I can totally see it.
No shit. And he's going to be the only
Like, whoa.
person left to procreate with himself. So,
Well, that was quite an experience there. I didn't quite like that. Well, life goes on. Brush it off. Here we go.
yeah, exactly. And he would go do a gig and outlast all of us. Let's say hello to a few people who have arrived here. Kim Hardin Hudson, can't get used to the times. I know it's hard. Mars Capone, good day to you. I saw Zach. I saw, who else did I see? I saw someone else. Rhodey's Jam Cave, good day to you. If I have missed you, I love you long time. We're talking about rock and roll, the music industry and all that kind of stuff today. We're just having a casual chat pretty much. That's what these shows are all about. Do you remember doing gigs, Thomas? Did you start doing gigs at school? I'm sure I've asked you this in an interview. Did you play school gigs?
No, I didn't do any gigs at school. I started and I've only probably
Church.
done, I think, well, there's that, but that's a little bit different. I only started, as far as like gigging with Thomas Christ, I only did that in 2002 was the first one.
Yep.
I think on February 2nd. And then we did one more show, I think like close to Valentine's Day. And did a few more after that. The last show that I did was in 2009. Probably did like 7 or 8 total. So I have a pretty limited experience as far as playing out live, but I did do it a little bit.
Were you an animal on stage?
Yeah, well, I mean, somewhere, you can, if you know how to find it well enough, you can find my first show and where I ripped up a groundhog and the $5 show.
Yeah, I've seen it.
That's a hint. That's a hint if you really want to find it.
Go and search it out. Hello, Hugh Caldwell as well too. Man, I have been playing gigs my whole life. I've done some things that I'm embarrassed about. Some things that made newspapers. I think that you can find newspaper clippings. How I, at an all ages gig, pulled out a machete halfway through the show and put my arm out and slammed it into my arm and sliced my arm open. I still got a nice scar across my arm, and I got scars across my eyes because I jumped into crowds and headbutted people.
Now, when you did that, when you sliced your arm open, what was the reaction of the crowd? Did everybody
Shock.
was everybody were they into it, or did everybody like back away slowly and then kind of head to the exit?
Shock, horror, because it was an all ages gig. So kids, kids. Well, I don't know. I guess most places, I'm guessing overseas, you guys have them. So all ages gigs, it'd be at a pub. They'd not serve alcohol. They'd open up the pub and just sell lemonade and Coke and all that kind of stuff. And all these kids would get to come along and see punk bands and hardcore bands that were local. And yeah, that was your chance to try and reel in kids to be fans of your music. So once they got old enough, they'd come to your shows. So you had, I think that even back then, we're talking about the 90s, you have to stand out. You had to do things to stand out because there's so many bands that just stand there with their hair over their face and you got to do things to get people talking about you. And, I got people talking about me because, fuck, man, if nobody's talking about you, then you may as well take up accountancy. Then people will really not talk about you. So
well, I had the opposite experience, and it was like when I would do things that were extreme or well, first of all, like most of my experiences as far as live performances were, I would say, not good to bad. I really didn't like playing live. I found it was always irritating to go up on stage and play to a bunch of people who don't know who you are, don't care who you are. They're there to socialize. They're there to talk to their friends and see their, whatever the main headlining band that was there, or you try to get friends to come out, and they always got something is going on. Well, gee, I think I have a thing that night, and it was always really hard to get people to come out. So if there's tickets or anything, nobody wanted to pay anything. So my experience is, albeit limited, playing live. Well, I just really was kind of turned off to the whole thing.
I guess it's area specific too. So here in Melbourne,
Yeah.
we're like, if you go to Sydney in Australia, go to watch bands, that was a joke. Like the joke was here in Australia, don't go to Sydney to go and watch bands because there's no gigs, there's no venues. But Melbourne was like the place. It was kind of like the Seattle of Australia. So every weekend there was more gigs to go to than you could actually see, because they were all on the same time and they always had great bands. So you really had to stand out and do something interesting. I mean, that's really how FMC started here in Australia. Like, there's so many death metal and crusty metal grindcore bands just all standing there just going and just singing about ripping guts up. And we just went, fuck it, let's all dress in drag and just make it a ridiculous stage show, and every gig do something different. We had gigs in FMC where we had a dinner table set up and we all sat there and had our instruments while we ate and played. We did shows where we all dressed as remade all the songs as boy band songs, and we all harmonized and sung along. I've got all videos of this stuff, and you just had to do stuff to get people interested. I mean, and that's how, for most, the two of the main bands I played in when I was young, that's how we got signed. Because we stood out, and people, the local rags, God, is are local rags still a thing, like all of a sudden we were getting mentioned in the free newspapers that are left outside the music stores saying, FMC, they did this, they did that. And then all of a sudden record labels go, hang on a minute, let's check these guys out. Let's play a song. We'll come back and we'll play another Thomas Christ song because we're here to celebrate you as well today. So what have I got here on the list? I'm just going to pick one of these. What did I open with? Did I open with Doom Scroll? I did.
Yeah.
Let's do, I love this song. I'm going to choose this one. Trials and Errors. I didn't tell you I was going to.
I know that's Russ 88. I'm wearing, see, I got my Delicate Giants on today, but yeah, it's Russ. He always tells me he likes that one. So
Russ is back in the UK, by the way. He landed yesterday, so he's back home. We're going to probably see him around again a little bit more. Anyway, let's play this. This is Thomas Christ. What did I say I was going to play?
Trials and
Errors. All right, get it right, Jade, you brain dead idiot. All right, let's Oja. Thomas Christ, Trials and Errors. That's one of my favourite songs by Thomas. Why? Because there's something about it reminds me about a Faith No More song. Every time I hear it, it's not saying that it rips off. Anyway, you get what I'm saying. It's that time, folks, where we need to mention our sponsor, who today is, of course, DistroKid. It's Oj. This presentation is proudly sponsored by DistroKid. Introducing DistroKid, your ultimate music distribution solution. For just $29.99 a year, DistroKid empowers you to release unlimited tracks on all major music platforms worldwide, including Spotify, Apple Music, TikTok, and so many more. Plus, use my link distrokid.com/VIP/JadeStarr and get 7% off your first year. You'll also keep 100% of your royalties and gain access to valuable tools like instant verification on Spotify and detailed revenue analytics. Don't let your music go unheard. Join DistroKid today and take your music career to the next level. Thank you, DistroKid, for sponsoring today's presentation. He's amazing, isn't he? he's It happens every time. I was thinking before you came on, I'm like, I bet he even sneaks a few links in there. I don't know how you do it. So, but thank you. It rocks.
You're welcome.
You are amazing. So let's talk about some myths and things that are true about the music industry. Because I think when most people are growing up, we have these ideas of how the music industry works. Yeah. So it's like, for me, it was, okay, so you start a band. You obviously go a bit Joe's Garage for Zappo, and you start out in a garage, you jam, you do some gigs, you put out a demo, you send those demos to a label. The label signs you. There's a guy who sits there and gets all the tapes and listens to them and checks them all out and goes, I got it. That's a great band right there. They send somebody out to the venue and see you live, and somebody comes up in a suit and goes, we listened to your demo and we were told that you were really good and we'd like to sign the dotted line. And then you're on your way to superstardom. That's how my stupid brain understood how the music industry works. And then it's just a whirlwind. What did your brain think the music industry worked, Thomas?
Well, you had that one too, because I had that exact same thing.
Bingo.
I don't know who it was that was going around telling people that, but that's what I was led to believe back in the day. And it's not so much true. When you read the stories of like how these bands got discovered, there's some. It does happen.
Yes, it does.
It did happen back in the day. People would send their tapes in, and if you had, if you were lucky and somebody happened to like the right person got to it and checked it out for whatever reason, they were bored that day, they put it in. And now I do think that back in, especially in like late 80s, early 90s, they were looking for bands who were really different. They were willing to take a lot of risks because, you saw bands like Mudhoney and Nirvana and Sonic Youth and stuff coming to the fore in those days. And I think they were looking for the next band that was going to be that. And I think we all benefited from that. That's why I still think the 90s were by far the best time for music, because especially in the early 90s, because they were just signing the weirdest bands. And we would have never heard of stuff like Primus. Could you imagine Primus being signed in 2024?
Yeah.
Never would happen in a million years.
No.
But they were looking for those kind of bands back then. And that's the kind of music I love. I love that weird stuff that the 90s offered. Even something like Crash Test Dummies with that song and everything. Like none of this stuff would be mainstream today, but it was back then. So there definitely was some cases of that, but a lot of times it was just like you did a gig and somebody happened to be there. Sometimes they would send A&R people out to gigs if there was a lot of buzz about it, and just building up a big fan base and stuff. The traditional like boring stuff, which is like you've proven that people like what you do and you can draw a crowd and stuff. That gets people's attention in those positions. But I don't know how much that happens today, because now it's all different. Now it's like how many views you have on YouTube, and it depends on the style of music, and rock music, like we were talking about earlier, isn't as near as big as it used to be, and so yeah, it's different today than it was then. But I think even then, like, that was probably the least likely way that you were going to get signed to anything.
I think that there was definitely a time where that whole idea was really happening. And I think it was more so back in the 60s and 50s when the mafia were really, the mafia is still probably controlling the music industry. I mean, there was a time there where the mafia were right in the music industry because the mafia had their feet firmly planted in venues and alcohol distribution and taking kickbacks and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, we've talked about this on this channel before. The jukebox industry back in the day, the radio industry is a part of the music industry. The system's been rigged for a fair amount of time. And like, there has to be a precedent. So for that rumor of the A&R guy turning up to the gig and all that stuff, and somebody who sits there and listens to music, for that to even be a thing, it has to have happened at some time. So it clearly did happen. And what you said about the 90s, I agree. I think the 70s was similar. The 70s as well was a time of rebelling against the war and stuff. And so there's a lot of bands. Yeah, I mean, you had two very stark styles of music, disco and rock. You got, Zappa over here and Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath, and you got, total disco happening over the opposite side. But it was a time for experimentation during the 70s. The 80s, it's funny, the 80s have some of the most catchy songs from the industry, but it was also a time when everything got very manufactured, and we had like Stock Aitken and Waterman who were churning out, and you had Milli Vanilli and all these artists that weren't real. They were just going into studios and just churning out this stuff. So the 80s is a very interesting time. It's like the Coke decade for me. Yeah. It just reminds me of Hulk Hogan with a crazy feather boa going, "Oh, my brother, take some cocaine and just do it." Just very flamboyant. But
Coke and Wall Street yuppies and Ronald Reagan and
and the 90s was the come down, heroin. Like every Coke fueled binge has to have a heroin come down. So they were hungry in the 90s to sign fucking anything. We wouldn't have got Mr. Bungle. Now, can you imagine? Even though Mr. Bungle's together now, that people just would have gone, "What? Hey, people are so conservative."
I mean,
now.
not even Mr. Bungle. Faith No More.
Yeah.
I don't even think would be. A lot of the bands that were big in the '90s, I don't even know if Nirvana would be signed nowadays.
I think
if there was a new Nirvana that came out, it's had the same talent, same style, and or the same impact musically. I don't think they would go for it because they're so, just boxed into this like pop formula that we're only going to do this one thing and that's it.
Hey, Chad Freeman, it's interesting because politics, regardless, you have to kind of talk about it because it does have an influence on music. In the 70s, there was war and people were rebelling against the war and bringing soldiers home. So people were smoking pot, take acid, drop out of school, all that kind of stuff. And the 80s was just like this comfort of like, hey, everything's going so good, and more of a conservative, but at the same time, conservative but rebellious. The 90s were just like, fuck, man. Yeah, just angst. Just there's so much anger. I think right now with music, we are in a very, and politics has a say in this, we're in a very conservative time with music. I think that reflects, this is why Taylor Swift is like, that's the standard. And politics is very conservative and there's a lot of wars going on in the world right now. And I'm telling you what normally happens out of wars? Depressions and rebellion and music. So hopefully it is a thing. I'm waiting for music to actually have an input into like changing things. We need, as Hugh said, the music is not rebellious at the moment. The music is in the mainstream. It's all about product placement. Like nearly every video clip has a fucking MacBook in it with an Apple logo. And there's, and like the amount of just overt, it's so weird. Like politically, we're so conservative at the moment, but there's still a lot of
Yeah.
overt sexuality in music. It's like people are. We thought. Remember when what's Girls on Film came out,
Yeah.
and everyone got so bent out of shape over the two girls sliding on the pole to meet in the middle and have a pillow fight. Now you watch a J-Lo clip and it's like, did I just see vag? Like, what's going on?
Well, they've always didn't. I think it was Bill Hicks that he had a great joke about that, and he said that one day they'll just have like a commercial for Coca-Cola, and it'll be just like like a this really attractive young lady just spread out on the bed, and it'll just pan down and show everything, and then it'll be like drink Coke.
Drink. Because oh man, we're so easily distracted with sex that that's why sex is a seller. Because everybody wants it and a lot of people can't get it, and people actually pay for it. It's a business. It's a thing. It's like money. But here we are with music. Yeah, I find music utterly bland these days. It's really hard. I think Mars wrote somehow somewhere here that here it is. You can still find weird music. The difference is nobody else has heard it. I find weird music all the fucking time, and I always feel so alone. Like, if you look at my Apple Music here, recently added, this is my recently added Pig Destroyer, Patty Waters, who's an amazing jazz singer. If you haven't heard Patty Waters, she's just off the chain. Diamanda Galas.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
she's awesome.
Kikudu and Hatsune Miku. What do we got? Brother Lynch Hung, Pig Destroyer. This is Waco Jesus, Torso Fuck. So it's a real charm. Piss Grave. Brain Bombs. What do we got? Today is the Day. Saint Mount Erie. Giles Corey. So a lot of stuff most people would not have ever heard of, but I still managed to find this shit. And, most people wouldn't even want to hear about that kind of stuff because it's very avant-garde and messed up. Let me come back to my points here. But the music industry's kind of always been rigged, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So, and also, what is off-putting as artists ourselves, I can speak from my experience, many young artists, when you do get signed as a young artist, you end up getting fucked over.
Yeah, well, I don't even know that the goal nowadays is to be signed. Like, what are you really getting for being signed? I suspect that if you really want to be like a pop star, if you want to be like the next Taylor Swift, if you want to be the next Lady Gaga or something, then you probably do want to be signed. But if you're doing any of this kind of music, I don't think being signed is doing anything for you. Because even if it was going to benefit you in some way, it's probably going to also hurt you in some way. And like we've talked about, they're really not interested in that kind of music. And I mean, you have small labels that do mainly distribution and stuff, but I say, why not just, the show's sponsored right there, DistroKid. Maybe you should just go to DistroKid. And I've actually seen some like bigger bands, some touring bands, people that tour across the country, and I look down, when they have all their releases on YouTube, and you go into the description and you'll see, released by DistroKid. So they're using it too.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people are trying to get away from the big labels as much as they can.
Absolutely. And I think people have a lot of misconceptions about getting a record deal, what it's all about. There's different types of record deals. There's you can get signed with a record deal, so this is one of the ways which I did when I was young. Label turns around and says, we'd like to sign you. Here's $20,000. Go and record an album. The thing is with that, like,
you're expected to make it back.
You got to fucking pay it back. Like, you got to make that money back. And guess what? Most artists, young artists who would sign those deals, don't make that money back. Because they don't have the getting a record deal doesn't mean you got pushes with marketing and all that heavy stuff. There's only so much marketing that they're going to put into it to recoup their money. It felt like, for me being in the industry back in those days, it felt like they wanted you to get strung up, so you owed them money, and then they could turn around and go, well, you owe us another record, or we're just going to take the rights of your music. And I got fucked over like that, where they took fucking our rights. We didn't check the papers that we signed, and we lost all that material. Luckily, it was shit material, so who gives a fuck? But that's
Well, and I'm sure you've heard a lot of the horror stories that are out there of just the way that people have been fucked by the record industry. Like you hear all these people signing these deals, and then they find out, like, later on, you don't own the music that you created. You have no control over that music, because the record label, the little thing that you signed that you definitely didn't read, because who ever reads things? We sign those things that come up when we install software and or join a community, social media, and we say agree. They give you a deal and they say, hey, you're gonna get, we're gonna give you $50,000 advance and sign on the line, and you're gonna be a big star, blah blah blah. Especially back in those days. And then you find out, well, all this stuff that I didn't read, and I didn't have enough money to hire an entertainment lawyer to go through this with a fine-tooth comb. Now, all the music that I made up prior to that point, and all the music that I made under that deal, is all owned by the record company. I have no control over my own intellectual property at all. And legally, you don't have a leg to stand on, because you signed a piece of paper that says you're fucked.
Yeah, true. And getting back to the industry, the way the industry works, like, I was shocked when I actually finally found out how the industry works. And it took it took 42 years for me to fucking work it out. And it was through a stroke of luck, through meeting somebody who in Australia here was the top dog of the industry. And I'm not going to go into how we met, because it's not relevant, but and befriending this person, and so this particular person was made so many artists in the 80s, and continued to make artists in the 90s, all the way up to current times, if he was still alive. And the way it works is, yes, they do still listen to music on CDs, like that idea that we imagined of getting cassettes and hearing that stuff. It's just they don't sit there waiting for bands to send the shit in. These people have friends who they trust with taste in music, friends who go out to gigs, friends who have their finger on the pulse, who know what's going on and understand what's kind of cool. And if they go and hang out with that person, have drinks, and this may not be somebody who, when I say they're friends, this is somebody who's not in the music industry. This is just a punter, and they've met somehow through some way, but they have taste in music. And what would happen is they'd have a chat, have a beer, have a wine, and this person would say, I went to a gig last week, this band's really cool. And that's enough for that person to go and check them out. So it's interesting how these big wigs it's not run like what you would think of, all these industry insiders and stuff. It's just common people who they befriend, who go to gigs, and because that's your best way to find out what's hot. The people who are actually going to gigs and paying and saying, this band's really hot at the moment. People are turning up. This is something interesting. And that's the way it rocks. And I was shocked. And when I was never told by anybody, don't sign a record deal, sign a publishing deal. Publishing deal is what you want. Record your own music, sign a publishing deal. The money you get, you can use to actually go out and fucking tour and actually continue to grow instead of have to pay back, But that's the way it actually works.
I mean, you're probably still gonna have to pay something back with that. Even maybe it's easier to do, but
well, they invest.
There's always a there is an investment, and they want a return on that.
Well, this is the thing, Thomas. I think a lot of the time with a publishing deal, with this kind of stuff, they pay you what they believe they're going to make.
Okay.
With taking into account an amount of loss that they can afford instead of like, here's a massive amount that you have to pay back. So that's definitely the difference. Plus, you've got, with publishing, you own the rights of your music kind of stuff. So there's that involved in it too. But yeah, so the money you get is kind of like, yeah, we think we can make this. They're not going to go, here's $80,000 and, on some independent and know then that's crazy. Plus, you got to remember record labels, like here in Australia, just think of like Mushroom Records, which is Australia's biggest record label, commercial label. They have subsidiaries of subsidiaries of subsidiaries of subsidiaries, all these things that are all tied to the one label. So they put out an amount of money to these subsidiaries that they write off as a loss. Why? Because they can claim it on tax, can't they? It's a write-off. It's just a write-off. There's so much when you scratch through the surface of the music industry. And these days it's changed because you hear it from bands. It's all about touring and merchandise.
Yeah, I mean the merch has become really a big thing these days too, and the thing with merch is, well, first of all, merch has gotten ridiculously expensive. I don't know how many of you have been to shows lately,
Of course.
but like you might think, well, t-shirt that used to be like $15-20, now they're selling them just one t-shirt $35-40. Forget about a hoodie, it'd be like $80. It's just crazy.
Yeah, $100 for a hoodie here at a gig, at a big gig. Like, what the fuck?
But when you think about, I know that's not what that costs to make that thing, but at the same time, that's probably like the vast majority of the money that they make, because the ticket sales, probably a lot of that goes to, the ticket, if it's going through like Ticketmaster, they take probably everything.
Yeah.
If it's going privately through the venue or something, the venue is going to take a cut of that. So your biggest, like, where you're going to get to make the most profit is off the merch. So yeah, it's marked up a good bit, but that's how they get to do what they do.
I think it's interesting too, because we take it for granted because we just buy the ticket and go to the gig, and we bitch about the price. I mean, I remember going to see Megadeth when I was a kid, $35 for that ticket. If I went and saw Megadeth now, no doubt $200+ for the same standing room in the same fucking venue at Festival Hall with no air conditioning, choking on my own fucking, the smell of all the unwashed grey metal t-shirts, and the smell of Sunsilk swinging in the air. Pete says, I paid $50 for my latest gig, t-shirt. Happy to pay. See, this is what I was going to get to. That's the thing. Like, I'm more than happy to pay that exorbitant price because we know that the money, that most of that money is going to go to the band. Here's the thing, as punters, we don't think about this. Gigs, insurance on the venue, insurance on the vans that they carry all the gear in. Remember, they're bringing gear across from overseas on planes or however they choose to bring it here. Then you've got car rental, hotel rental, the amount of insurances and stuff, that all this stuff, and man, the overheads just to hire a venue is out of fucking control. Then you have like lighting, roadies, event staff, all this stuff that is just, you don't think about for huge gigs. Somebody's got to pay it, don't they?
They sure as hell do, because there's bills that come, and those bills, just like your own bills that you get at home,
Yep,
have to be paid, and so somebody's going to pay for it eventually, and it's probably going to be taken out of the artist's coffers in most cases.
So, knowing now what I know, it all makes sense. When I go back to that interview I did with Faith No More, and they're like, we got $200 in our bank account. What the fuck is going on?
That still blows my mind with the band as big as Faith No More, though. What year was this?
So it was Angel Dust, 92.
92.
Yeah.
Had they really? Was that after? It was after
their
big hit.
Yeah, it was after
Epic. Yeah.
It was their second album with Mike Patton. So I think Easy was their single at the time. And that did really well. It was a cover of the Commodores. That did really well. Even you mentioned Mudhoney before. I went to a gig because I used to do a fanzine. Remember those folks? Fanzines.
Yeah.
People, actually, fans who actually went out and interviewed bands and then put all the interviews together fucking back before we had like computers and shit, and you just like a scrapbook, put all the photos in and typed it all out on a typewriter and then photocopied it and stapled it together and put. I'd had a fanzine, and we did an interview with Mudhoney, and they were so sweet. They were like, "Come back to our hotel room," and we're like, "Okay, that's a bit weird." And then we went back there and we had some drinks, and then they went, "Come and have a spa bath with us." And we went, "All right." Why not? Why not? We were only 16, the two of us, and we did. And then we went to their gig. They snuck us in for free, and they gave us free T-shirts and got us alcohol. And you know, Mudhoney was big to me. I was like, "Fucking hell, man! This is who's Nirvana." So
That's nice.
It's interesting because, you know, there are lots of bands out there who haven't become anal and live inside their assholes. I think we forget that there's a lot of bands that haven't become that, because there certainly are bands that lose themselves. Can you think of any bands that you know of who you think, or artists that have lost themselves in their own hype?
Lost themselves in their own hype.
You know, become cunts. I can.
Yeah.
Henry Rollins.
Yeah. Well, I mean, did he change, or did we just learn about him?
That's a good point.
From what I've heard, he was always kind of that way.
Yeah, I interviewed him, and my friend who was doing the interview with me stupidly asked him about Black Flag. And it was like, dude, you never ask Henry Rollins about Black Flag. And he got super angry and he choked my friend out. And he said the interview was over. And then at the gig later that night, he glassed somebody in the front row. I don't know. That kind of left a sour taste in my mouth, I got to say.
Steroids are a hell of a thing.
They sure
rage.
Pete says, Jane's addiction seemed to be getting worse each year. Well, yeah. Yeah, Perry Farrell's got some issues.
Well, did they break up? I thought they kind of broke up after.
I think they decided to do a hiatus.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I saw this recently with Ween too, and this one really surprised me because it was Dean Ween this time.
Right.
Now, before they had broken up before. And it was because it was Gene Ween, the singer, and he had a major drug problem and had to deal with that, and so kind of seemed like they were going to be broken up forever. But he did eventually, you know, he went through what he needed to go through to get sober, and they got back together. Now they were back on tour again, and I think they were celebrating the anniversary of the release of Chocolate and Cheese, and then I think they were playing that whole album or something, and then I saw this post on Facebook where it's like, and it was Dean Ween, and he said that, you know, he just needed to, for his own mental health, he needed to get away from it for a while. So I don't know if they're gonna eventually get back together. I don't know if they started having, you know, arguments, which seems to happen. I couldn't imagine, you know, being on tour with the same people, you know, in these confined spaces for long periods of time. You eventually start to find the things about the people that you don't like, because, you know, it's like a marriage, but you didn't even choose it necessarily. You just kind of you know how that goes.
Man, it's why it's taken so long for me to join a band again, because bands, and I've been in bands where like the guitarist fucked my girlfriend, and then had the gall to ring me one night and just call me out the blue and go, "Hey, it's Scotty here. How you going?" I'm like, "Yeah, pretty good, Scott. What's going on with you?" He goes, "Oh, I feel a bit nervous. I'm just ringing to tell you that I've been fucking Karen." I'm like, well, you know, she's a slut, so, and you're a doofus, so maybe you two are good together. And then we kicked him out of the band. So, but he was a dork anyway.
The end of that.
The guy couldn't even hold a beer, so whatever. One beer and he fell over. So, but bands, you're right. Bands are like being in a marriage with people you fucking don't understand and haven't fucked, so you don't really know them intimately, and then you find out the fuck they are. You got to go on tour with these people. You're like, oh man, but it's not always a bad experience being in a bit. Look, and I guess, you know, talking about artists who become up themselves. And look, we're in an era too where Lady Gaga, you look at, I feel like I'm doing an episode of TMZ today talking about all these celebrities, but Lady Gaga, you know, she struggles heaps with anxiety and dealing with people. And it's so interesting. Look at Kurt Cobain, one of the most revered artists of that era, completely changed the landscape and didn't even mean to, just fell into this, wrote some songs, changes the whole landscape of music to this grunge era, and the dude's unhappy as fuck and just doesn't deal with any of this stuff. So it's not for everybody, and some people just want to play music and they just can't cope with what comes with it.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true, and there's a lot of pressure. Just writing music can be a pressure situation. Doing all the hats that you have to wear nowadays, because I mean, you basically nowadays, you basically have to be like a content creator. You have to be a promoter. You have to be the songwriter, the lyricist. You know, you got to be the business manager. You got to be the lawyer, the accountant. You have to do all those different things, and you're certainly not going to be good at all of them, and some of them are going to be quite difficult for you. So I can imagine that you know, this stuff can get to be really stressful for people and really difficult to deal with.
Yeah,
and I think all of us probably could relate to that. And even if we're not big celebrities or anything, you know, we've dealt with it in our own small way. I also think, though, there's almost like there's two music industries. We've been mainly talking about, I think, more of the you know, the popular music industry.
Yep.
The mainstream music industry. But I think there's an indie music industry. And you know,
True.
we're all a big part of that in our own way. And you know, there's, you know, shows like what you're doing here and what Pete does and what I do, and there's stuff like that happening all over the internet, and it's creating this kind of like underground, kind of like there used to be like an underground in music before, but it was like in these small clubs, and you know, you had to go down in the basement somewhere to find them. Well, now that you don't have the basements anymore, now you have YouTube, and you have, you know, other kinds of social media outlets, you BandCamp, stuff like that. Yeah,
I don't think it ever went away. I think there's always been this, you know, this indie scene that's brewing underneath where people, because, you know, there's always people who are like, fuck the mainstream. I hate the mainstream. And there are people who are just very simply just love another song about "Ooh, baby, I love you" that says "Ooh, baby, I love you" 20,000 times in the chorus. And that's cool too. There's music for everybody. And the indie scene has never really gone away. It's just been squeezed into different ways of accessing it, you know. And now, as you're right, YouTube, BandCamp, there's still lots of ways to find stuff. I mean, I search YouTube all the time for like icebergs on weird music. That's one of my, give me an iceberg, man. I want an iceberg on bloody weird movies, weird music, stuff like ultra heavy music, icebergs on unknown artists or stuff like that. And that's the best way I find stuff these days. Amelia, your partner, has some very good points here. Under capitalism, everything is a commodity. If you don't own everything yourself, from your actual labor to your image to your setup, you have a boss somewhere. Artists need to be organized. And also, as a consumer, you don't own anything anymore. Long gone are the days where a band would go into a studio, produce an album, get it pressed, put it out, and then we'd all flock to the music store and wait at midnight as it's released and go get it home and play it on repeat, because we're owning less. And I think Rick Beato's done videos on this with the music industry. Is it cheapening the music industry? I ask you this because you are somebody who's in the trenches playing people's music, you know?
yeah.
And there's not as many people as there should be doing this. You know, in our community, there's heaps of them. We've got plenty. But on the broader, when you look outside, there's not really too many artists, places that are doing this. The radio's dead, you know.
Yeah.
So is us not owning physical music, do you think that's having an effect on the way music's produced, the way it's released, the music that we're getting?
Well, it definitely has an effect on obviously it has an effect on the way it's released.
Yeah.
But I've always embraced the digital revolution as far as music goes. I think it's because I really think, when we talk about this dual structure where you have the mainstream music industry and then you have the the indie music situation, the indie music scene. I think as much as the mainstream music scene is probably the worst it's ever been, I think the indie music scene is the best it's ever been. And we have access to so many artists who probably back in the day would have made it to the mainstream, and now that doesn't happen as much as it used to because the mainstream has become so conservative. But we have access to it now here, and more people than ever are able to put their music out there. And I hear it every week when I do my show. I'm just like blown away by how good all the music that's being created is. And it's really, a lot of it is on par with some of the stuff that we grew up listening to. And I just think it's not getting out there because it's not what's, quote, in demand or whatever. But there's still a lot of people who hunger for it. And that's why people are here. That's why people are at Metalhead Hippie. That's why people are at Pete John's. That's, it's really, there's a hunger for that. And it's not being fulfilled by the mainstream, so it's kind of up to us to do that, and I think that's happening in a cool way. Now, what I worry about is there's a growing movement towards physical media again, and what I don't like, I do like it from the perspective, yeah, it's cool to have the physical object. It's cool to have the records, and they print the records now and all the different, variation. When somebody big comes out with an album, there's going to be like 25 different variations of the album because it's more about collecting than it is about, you're not really getting that to listen to. You're getting it to like put it on your wall or, have it in your collection. So there's a big collector thing, but I think that also, if that becomes a prerequisite, that becomes a barrier for artists because it's very expensive and it's very, you have to get your music specially mastered to be on vinyl. So it's very expensive to print cassettes. It's expensive to print CDs. And for me, I'm like glad that I don't have to do that anymore because that was a huge pain in the ass when I used to have to do that. I had a printer that printed, you had to buy special CDs and you could print
stamp
directly. Yeah, I had this stamp thing, but I actually had a printer that there were special CDs where you could print directly on the CD.
Yes, I remember those.
And it was very slow and tedious.
Yes, it was.
It'd jam up all the time. And
it's like using a cheap 3D printer. It takes 8 days to print something this big. I think the reason why, and hello to Dynamite Throw as well in the chat. The reason why indie music thrives so well today and is not getting discovered is because so many of us have the power. I mean, we're sitting here with tools in our hands, phones, iPads, computers, the power with an audio interface to make incredible sounding music, and we have the power to dictate how our music sounds. So it is the Wild West for artists to actually make what their vision is, what they want to hear, their dreams, to make them come true. What's unappealing, I think, to the mainstream, the industry, is that they can't control that. And obviously the industry is about control, like a lot of things in life, and being very conservative in the way the world is at the moment. Control is a big thing, even though they like to tell you that it's not about control and it's about freedom. It's not. It absolutely isn't. Pete says, I love the digital revolution and the future, but there's no doubt that the average punter is spending less on music now than any other decade. And that's why independent artists aren't making enough money. And that's why BandCamp thrives, because at least you're getting something back. Look, DistroKid, all these services are great to get your music out there for people who are using streaming services. They can get it on tap, on demand, and we love that. But there is still something about owning something. Even if it's a digital copy and owning it, there still is that thing. I don't know if it's we've been programmed to just consume and own stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I get the idea, and flipping through the having the lyric book there when you listen to it for the first time is a great thing, and being able to see the pictures, the artwork, experiencing the music exactly the way the artist kind of intended. There's something special about that, but I also don't want it to become the new gatekeeper where it's like, if you can't afford to do this, then you pretty much are not going to be taken seriously.
Well,
So, and maybe it already is that. I don't know.
Remember, according to the CEO of Spotify, it costs nothing to make music. Absolutely zero.
Wow.
So,
Spotify. I think the CEO of Spotify is a fucking twat waffles.
it's awful. Hello, Russ. Welcome back, my friend. Good to see Russ back. Let's round this up because, as I said, what you do and what Pete does, Metalhead Hippie, Chad Freeman, who's here, many people in this community, Falcro, play people's music in this smaller community. And no matter how small this community currently is, we're always looking for new people. Frank Terzo as well. I can't leave out Frank with the Community Pulse, bringing new people in. We want this to grow and get more people and help people understand that they can get their music played, right? And you do want things to grow, not so much for yourself to like reap off it or anything like that, but you just want to see music thrive because, as you said, music is... Even like my experience knowing you, Thomas, I remember when I first met you and heard your music, compare your early stuff to fucking now, it's like night and day on an extreme level. We all get better the more we do these things. Practice makes, what's that thing Pete says? Practice makes
progress.
Progress, exactly. And that's what we're seeing in this community. And as somebody who plays people's music, I mean, you see it every week for 5 hours while you're getting pimples on your bum sitting there for that amount of time. You see it better than anybody. And I want to finish as we draw close on this because we've got Pete coming up. What are your thoughts, Thomas, on AI music?
Fuck that shit. Here's the thing about AI. And this was evidence to me very in a very vivid way when I just for shits and giggles I was gonna put out a post for Thanksgiving, and I thought I had this idea. It would be interesting because what's Thanksgiving really all about, other than of course giving thanks, which is the main thing. But it's about eating food, eating turkey, and watching football. So I thought, what if I got the AI to do this and have where we're eating a football and watching turkeys on TV, and that's what I wanted the AI to do. But the AI, I made a post with some of these images because I was howling at the stuff it was creating.
Where did you post this? Where did you post it?
It was on YouTube on the community tab.
Oh, cool! I'm gonna find it.
But what I realized is that if AI doesn't have something to reference, it doesn't know what to do. So it has no reference for that because there's nothing out there like that. So it just starts throwing Thanksgiving. It's like, here's turkeys and footballs, and there you go. There's turkeys and footballs, and we don't know what's going on.
Why is the TV behind them?
I know. And look how many turkeys there are.
Yeah.
That was the closest it got to getting it right. I think was look at there's like a baby football.
There's a football inside the turkey.
But that kid over there is holding what looks like a baby football. Yeah. And then she's like eating the football over there, and there's little turkeys in there.
AI truly has no idea what we are.
So this is what I mean. If it doesn't have something to reference, it just goes haywire.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with like AI music. This was my favorite one because I'm trying to figure out that thing on the table. It's like a bottle of wine or oil or something with a turkey head on it. Very weird.
They got the football right though. That's the most important thing.
But on TV it was, and if you notice, it also says where the team names are supposed to be. It says Turkey and Thanksgiving.
That's wild.
So,
So AI
so yeah.
music, yeah, go.
But if you're doing AI music, if you give it a prompt that if you give it like death metal, it knows death metal because there's lots of death metal out there. It can
Yes.
reference that. But if you say you want some kind of weird, like, I want alien polka metal with new wave something, if you think of something that's really outside the box, it's going to be like, what the fuck, I don't know what to do, I don't have anything to reference, and it's just going to start throwing whatever in there.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can get some really interesting stuff that way, I will say. But at the same time, it just goes to show the weakness of what AI is doing, and it can't innovate.
Yeah, it's not thinking for itself, and
No.
we're being fed something that's totally not true. And there's definitely a skill to using AI to create things. There's no doubt about that, and it is all about prompting. It's because you just have to understand the right prompts to put in, and you can get virtually exactly what you want with a bit of practice. And that's why there's jobs now that are looking for prompters. And I'm sure with that kind of stuff, those prompters have insider knowledge into what the templates are, because it's
Yeah.
the current. That's the thing with AI music, AI art, all this kind of stuff that's around creativity and AI. It's not actually learning anything. It's just scraping. It's just it's a modern web crawler. That's what it is. We had web crawlers back when the internet started. GeoCities had web crawlers. It just crawled everything across GeoCities, and you could find it really easy. It's a modern day web crawler. But I ask this of you because you sit here and you play people's music, and I'm seeing it as well as a mod. We're sitting here second guessing. We're going, is this AI generated? Did somebody actually make this? Because along with, artists out there who are truthful, and there's a lot of fucking scammers in every fucking department of this world. And there's people out there just going, hey, Thomas Christ, I'll just send in this and won't say that it's AI. Are you seeing an increased amount of AI stuff being submitted to you, Rock?
Well, I saw it. It started happening kind of around the time that, like, what I like to call the studio group, Suno and Udio, which if you put them together, it makes studio.
Studio.
But when that first came out, like, I was getting songs like that, and I put them on, and you hear the aliasing in the vocals, and there's also like this sense of like, I know, and sometimes they were people I'd heard real music from before, and I know they didn't do that.
Yep.
I know that, like, I know what their capabilities are, and they may be very talented, but they didn't do that, and then I know it has to be AI.
Yeah.
And I had to put rules in place to say, and I don't mind if there's elements of things that are created by AI, but I don't want a song that's just like somebody just, put an AI prompt in, and it's all from the machine, because like it says in the guidelines, we want to hear your music, not a machine. So that's been my stance. Other people may look at it a different way, and it's also just a matter of, because like there's a lot of artists who want to have their music played, and to waste time listening to music that somebody didn't actually create, it just doesn't make sense to me. So I kind of I go against that, but that's just my stance on it.
I'm not for segregation, but in this instance, here's the deal. If you're making AI music and you really love it, and you know other people who do it, why don't you all fuck off and go make your own new rock and go sit there and listen to your fucking AI music? And don't. I just find it insulting to people who are making music. I don't really give a shit that they have decided to make that, because hey, fucking, we all want to make stuff, and some of us don't have the skills. But trust me, hard work fucking pays off. You'll get better, and but don't cut corners. But hey, if you want to go listen to that shit, go make your own show. Go fuck off, do that, because there's so many great artists who put in so much love and passion into their music, and you are just shitting all over that passion. And fuck off. I can't hold.
You can make your own
punches.
AI show. You can.
Make it.
Maybe it'll be big.
Make it AI music rocks. because
Yeah.
it's certainly not you. We have to get out of here for today. I want to thank you for coming on and having this chat. We got Pete Johns coming up next. I could do this for heaps longer with you, Thomas. We'll have you back on for another rant next year. We're going to mix it up and have more different people on for these rants. If you're enjoying the stuff, folks, hit the like, do that stuff. If you're watching on a replay, do the same thing as well. Pete Johns is up next. He's going to be talking about travel stuff. He went away and travel technology, so that'll be intriguing. I'm heading out to go buy a poster for this door behind me today, even though I've got one on order. Man, you know what? Speaking of cool posters, man, last night on eBay, I found a Mr. Bungle tour poster from 1992 when they toured Australia. They want $200 for it.
Oh, jeez.
And I swear I wish I had $200. I would snap that. I went to nearly every gig on that tour. Anyway, that's another story. We're going to bounce. We're going to play another track. I've chosen a different track to go out on. We're going to play your latest track from September, Nuclear Football, since we just looked at the turkeys and shit. Changed shit up. Where can people find you, Thomas Christ?
YouTube.com/Thomas Christ. I got website, thomaschrist.net is the best place to check it out. We got You Rock on Wednesday and Thomas Christ Live on Saturday. So,
absolutely. Send your stuff in. Give this man some songs to play. I love your work, Thomas. Love what you do. Thank you for everything that you do around the community, and love your music most of all. Folks, you are the music industry. Remember that. You are the music industry. You don't need fancy people telling you this and that and managers and that. You are the ground level of the music industry. Without you, half of my Apple Music collection wouldn't exist. So be safe in the knowledge that there's that. Let's get out of here. Remember, do the things that make you happy. Mistakes make you better, and we'll all rise together. Lastly, thank you to everybody. 4,500 subscribers here on this channel. And on the opening hour this week, I think it's going to be, I can't remember. Is it going to be, let's just check before I go off. Holy shit, 1,500 episodes. Wow. Hey, what the hell? Let's get the shit out of me. Stay awake, folks.
nice to die.
Let's get out of here. This is Thomas Christ and Nuclear Football. Let's Oge, baby!
And it looks to be just about a 50-yarder from the left hash. That ball, does it have the distance? And it does. How about 3 points on the board? On midfield, 40, 30, 20, 10. advantage of that turnover. In the end zone, and intercepted.